like God is always winking at you, and He's always giving you those little blessings. Be complacent in your faith because you're really not practicing your faith at all. Comfortability doesn't always mean you're doing the right thing.
Kind of like a Hansel and Gretel breadcrumb path that's leading you on your way, that tells you you're doing the right thing. Hello, people, and welcome back to another episode of the Lost Sheep Podcast. This is episode number 56, and you've seen my beautiful face a few times over the past few weeks while this rotating cast has spun out, but back again. I think it was 1 week on, 1 week off, 1 week on. So back with me again, Cole, fresh from his Italian adventures. If you've been following his very well put together vlogs on Instagram and YouTube and whatnot. I've heard actually very little about your adventures. You seem very excited. This random person, I will let you know, followed me on Instagram. And it was like some Italian person that our only mutual was you. So I imagine someone you met in Italy. But there's a whole episode of information on Italy and information about your experience. I'm sure that we'll be discussing a little bit more, but do you want to tell us like your favorite part / how you've been / what went down, what was going on?
I can talk about it for a little bit. Really quickly, for those of you who are not invested in learning about my trip on Italy, you can feel free to skip ahead a little bit. But for those of you, especially the families who sponsored me, because I told you guys that I would talk about this in the podcast, and so I'm very excited to let you know how it went, and extremely grateful for you guys allowing and giving me the opportunity to go on this amazing experience. I'm very curious, who was it that followed you? Do you remember the name?
Oh my gosh, it was a girl.
Is it Mariana or Anna Guidetti, maybe?
Yeah, the second one.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so she was one of our people on the trip as well. Cool, exciting.
Shout out, Anna.
Yeah, so awesome, sick. So we had, really quickly, I was very, 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 very excited to go on this trip. So I had been vlogging. I was so pumped and I was so bored in the airport. I was like, okay, let's do some airport vlogs for you guys. And so I recorded a couple. It was fun, little fun vlogs. And then we landed in Italy. And one of the neatest parts of this whole experience is I didn't know a single soul that I was going on this trip with. So I met with 59 random strangers in an airport in Rome, and nobody spoke the same language until we got to everybody else. So that was great.
Was the average age about, like, what was kind of the demographic here? What are we talking about? College age kids? Are we talking about young adults? What was kind of the spread?
I was the youngest person on
Wow.
this trip. Yes, there was one other. When I got there, I walked up to. So I went with the Vigil Project. If you don't know them, please go follow them. Give them a look. They are a wonderful, wonderful Catholic band and are doing a lot in the world with musicians and different projects and different services. So if you are interested in them, please, please, please go give them a look. But I walked up to one of them. Her name was Sophie. And she said, okay, that is Anthony over there. He's going to be your roommate for pretty much this entire time. He's the closest one your age. He's 21. He just graduated from LSU. So she said, you're either going to love him or you're going to hate him. But you just got to be friends. And I was like, okay. And so we got really, really, really close over our time in Italy. And so it was awesome. But yeah, there was a lot of, I'd say the demographic probably leaned towards like, it was probably about 28 to 30 is like the average age. We had a lot of people in their low 20s. We also had a lot of older people as well, and then people like about in their 30s and 40s. So it kind of ranged. It was really cool. The spectrum was like professional composers to singer-songwriters to volunteer music directors like myself. So lots of different skill levels, but really quickly highlight some of the craziest parts of this trip. This is a pilgrimage, and like you can imagine, if you're with 59 other musicians in the world, the music is going to be excellent. So the first time we had mass together, and we were singing all of these hymns. The first song we sang, I literally was like in shock. I was like, everybody's harmonizing. This is the most beautiful sound I've ever heard in my life. I'm never going to get to experience this again, so let's just be part of it. And it was so invigorating. It was so beautiful. But it's a pilgrimage, and so we would go through different meetings and talks, and it was more like kind of a retreat style as well. So it was really, really beautiful. While we were in Assisi was our first stop, we stopped and saw St. Francis and had a meeting in that.
His tomb or a church?
Sorry, his tomb.
Okay. Cool.
Which it's in his church in Assisi. And then we had like a meeting there. We played. It was really beautiful. And then we went to St. Catherine's, I believe, on the other side. And her tomb is there as well. So we got to see her. And then, probably one of the craziest parts of the whole thing is we literally got to see Carlo Acutis. And his body does not decompose. And so it's literally him. And it's kind of the craziest thing in the world, seeing a teenager dressed up in jeans and flannel, and there being thousands of people waiting in line just to get to see him. It's incredible. It's so beautiful, and you can like totally feel the presence of just his spirit there. And so it's I can't even tell you. Then we went to Modena, where we stayed with host families. The coolest part was when we got there. All the Italians that were hosting us were out there playing music for us, and when we pulled up on the bus, and so we were like, these people are so happy, and the host families just invited us so graciously, and the nicest people in the world. We would leave during the day to go to our workshops, and we would come back, and our room would be straightened up. There was one day, this is a really funny story, I'm going to say it really quickly, but their grandmother had asked us to do our laundry, and if she could do our laundry. And so we set our laundry on the floor for her, and we came back, or we were in Mass later that afternoon, and she came up to us, and she was like, I did your laundry. She said, although the socks were very dirty, I spent hours scrubbing them. And she says, I don't know what you guys did to them, but I couldn't scrub them. They were so gray. Now here's the funny part. My socks are actually just the color gray. And so we got back later that afternoon, and guess what was on our beds? 2 boxes of socks bought for each of us.
Fresh That's hilarious. Did she throw them away?
No, they were still there. And they were smelled so good,
funny.
though.
That never occurred to me. That's funny.
So,
That's funny.
Great food. The host family was wonderful. While we were in Modena, we broke up into like 5 different ensembles. I was in the praise and worship ensemble, but there was praise and worship, singer-songwriter, the jam band, and then, what was the last one? Liturgy. And so you could pretty much choose whatever you wanted to. And during that little time period, at the end of our experience in Modena, we all would get together, and for the entire community of Modena, they all came, and we had a big night. And so we led praise and worship, and then we went to Mass where the liturgy team did it. And then after that, there was a big stage, and everyone was eating. They actually had an American barbecue truck there, which was kind of exciting for all the Italians. And so the jam band was up there, and let me tell you, these musicians I'm with are absolutely insane. It's so cool. Like 7 people who've never played in a band together just got together and were rocking the stage. It was great. And then the singer-songwriter group went up there and performed a song, and it was beautiful. And then we finished the night with adoration, led by music from the Vigil Project, out in the field, and it was unbelievable. So that was a really cool experience. During this whole time, we're basically in school in Modena, is basically what it is. So for the first half of the day, we're listening to lectures and talks about what the church actually does teach about music and liturgy, which is really good, and good for me as a music director, because like, okay, what is allowed during adoration? Like actually, like what does the church say you can or cannot do? And what instruments does the church say or whatever? And it was very beautiful to get to experience that. And then we had Bill Donahue from the Theology of the Body Institute. For those of you who don't know who that is, he works alongside people like Christopher West and Chris Stefanik and Matt Fradd. He actually has a podcast with Matt Fradd. He was on Pints with Aquinas. And so we just got to hang out with him all week, and that was sick. I got gelato with him, shared a gelato with him, so that was cool. But yeah, we talked all about beauty and awe and the way of wonder. And so if you have not checked out his stuff, go look at that. And finally, we finished our pilgrimage in Rome. And let me tell you, Rome is like New York, but in Italy. So the exterior is not the most pleasant thing in the world. It's just very surrounded with cars and everything. But once you get into the inside, it's so beautiful. We spent most of our time there with a chaplain of ours that was down there, and he showed us all around the place. We got to go to mass with the Pope, by the way. So that was legendary. He gave a baller homily. It was in Italian, but I went back and read it in English. It was fire. And then we saw St. Agnes, St. Monica, St. Cecilia, St. Francis, or not St. Francis, we already saw him, JP2, and then there was one more in there. St. Peter, St. Paul. So the big dogs. So that was cool to see their tombs. We finished with Mass in St. Cecilia's crypt. So we had Mass on Pentecost. We had the full Pentecost Mass, which is like an Easter Vigil. There's 6 readings. It's so beautiful in this little area with 59 musicians. The echo was gorgeous. St. Cecilia was right there with us the whole time. It was incredible experience, and it was great. So there's so much to talk about. Like, I can't even explain all the beauty of that trip. There's so much. It was life changing. The people were amazing. So yeah, that's Italy in a very, very small nutshell for you guys.
Yeah, very nutshell. So 2 things. I always love to think about, like, when you're in these churches with whether it's an incorruptible body, whether it's a relic or something, it is really that presence of, like, wow, this saint is here with me, which makes it so much cooler when you really think about, like, every time we celebrate Mass, honestly, every time we ask, like, the communion of saints is standing there with us, which is just such a cool thing to think about. But second thing I asked before we get into our quote for the day, before we get into our episode, was anyone famous there? Anybody we would know? Or the common folk. Anybody the common folk would know?
Let me think. There was a cardinal that I saw. I actually have not spent the time to research which one it was.
On the retreat with you.
Oh, Bill Donahue was probably the most famous person that was on it with us. Stephanie Gretzinger was supposed to be there. I don't know if you know who that is. She's a famous Christian artist, but unfortunately it didn't work out with her, but she was supposed to be there. Other than that, Mariana, who is our Italian translator for the whole time, very humble human being. I actually had no idea she was who she was until at the end of the trip, but I went back and found her Instagram, and she's actually the Italian voice for Hallow. So I was like,
that's
okay,
cool.
That's lucky, kind of sick.
Cool. Yeah.
So yeah, but it was just a wonderful experience. All these it's a bunch of little, if you could put, there was Catholic influencers, composers, people who wrote their own Gregorian chant. It was so beautiful. I just can't tell you how talented all of these people were. The Vigil Project were wonderful, and they have so many beautiful stories to tell, and we'll keep telling them to the rest of the world. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and any questions, obviously, just put them down in the comments or whatever. Reach out to us, Demos. If you want to hear more about what went on, go watch the vlogs. I think days 1 through 6.
Yep.
Are vlogged.
Well, actually, it's every day. Every day is vlogged on there. So if you're interested.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a vlog for every day. Go back and watch those. It gives you a good glimpse into what Cole did every day. But super excited for our quote of the episode. Do we have an intersection here? Do I need to make music since Nazario's not here?
Not for quote. I think we just hop straight into quote.
Huge.
So yeah.
Okay, so this week's quote by a famous painter and artist, Vincent Van Gogh: "Normality is a paved road. It is comfortable to walk, but no flowers grow on it." And Cole, I'm going to toss this one over to you. I will have you know there's a huge money line on what the first definition he's going to ask for is. My bet is on, since I can hear him typing as we talk, my bet is it's going to be normality. So I'm going to toss this one over to you since there's 2 of us. And we can play hot potato after that. But first thoughts on kind of this quote.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to talk about is art. Vincent Van Gogh, um, he is a famous painter, and so that's like what he does. And so we got to see a lot of beautiful art in Italy as well. And I don't think people realize the impact of art on the world, but like there are thousands of people literally just standing there looking at a painting, one of the most famous paintings in Rome, just because of its beauty and the lighting. And so there's a lot of beauty that can be found in art. And so that's again what Vincent Van Gogh is most famous for. But you did correctly guess that I was going to pull normality, because it's an interesting word, and I think it's like the highlight of this quote.
And I'm curious because in my head, and again, we try our best not to. I mean, we talk about the theme and the topic beforehand, before the episode, but we try our best not to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to talk about, and this is what you're going to talk about, because I think that's a little bit, But, oh,
That's a phone call right there. You just pulled a me, dude. That's me. I do that. I used to do that every episode. It's so funny.
receiving my notification to pray midday hours. But yeah, so what I'm gonna take as normality may be something that you take completely different as normality, and maybe a different I imagine the definition is pretty sterile, but shoot, go for it. What do you have for normality?
So I'm gonna say the definition, and I have a question for you.
Shocker.
Yeah. So normality, it's the condition of being normal. Pretty simple right there for you guys.
Yeah.
The state of being usual, typical, or expected. So my question to you, Evan, is normality a thing? Like, actually, is it a defined thing?
I feel like this is kind of like the neutral debate.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I think it's kind of one of those things that neither one of us is ever gonna really prove. I think it's kind of one of those things that you can look at and say, I could really pitch for that. I do hear the lawnmower. I took off my headphones to make sure it wasn't my dad annoying. No, but I think normality does exist. I think when you look at you got to talk about the status quo here, like what people should be doing, whether it's what you see on social media, the things you should be buying, the mainstream items. I think we would instantly analyze people or things or items as normal or as regular, and we'd also instantly analyze things as irregular or against the norm. And so I think when you really look at it, when you break down, like, is normal, can it be a thing? I think yes. But as they say, and I was about to use a How to Train Your Dragon quote. I want to go watch that movie.
Dude, I just watched it last night.
Oh, was it good?
Yes.
Okay.
It is so accurate to the original. I loved it. Anyways, continue. Sorry.
But yeah, anyway, short hiatus. But so much is in the eye of the beholder, right? And so what's normal to me, and what I assign as normal, or like the status quo or regular, can be very different from what other people assign as normal and regular and the status quo. So I think normalcy does exist, but it's a little bit one of those things that is a rotating sphere. It can be whatever someone chooses for normal to be. It's, what's that word I'm looking for? It's subjective. It's subjective. Normalcy is subjective.
Interesting.
Do you is there normal? Is this going to become the new neutral?
I think so. Maybe it is, dude. I think we just end up like, we have this debate where we end up with words that end up being like neutral and indifference and all these other things, where we just come back to the same thing. Like, are these actual possible words in the human mind? I think normality is. I think it is. And I think you hit it straight on the head of the nail when you were talking about. I don't think personal normality exists. I think if we are talking about true normality, it's what the world sets it to be, right? Like it's what you talked about earlier. Like the world is setting this trend to be the normal trend. This is what you do. This is what you wear. This is how you're supposed to act, and that's normalcy according to the world. And if that's relative, if normality is relative, then it shouldn't exist anymore, right? Because then it's not actual normality. Um, and so I guess if we're talking about normality in the sense of the world, then I think the world kind of controls what it is, which is exactly why I love this quote so much, right? If the world controls what's normal, okay, then what is supposed to make you unique? How do you become unique in a world that's normal? And I love it. I love this quote. Normality is a paved road. It's comfortable to walk, but no flowers grow on it. So let's talk about our faith, right? We walk this road, and we have the option in public as Catholics to, when we're out eating food, the first thing we do is we bless our food, and we do the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. We do the sign of the cross. The question is, are we scared to do that? Do we do that? Do we not do that? And we have this thing, oh, what's the world going to think of us because we're not doing something that's normal? And so uniqueness in your faith is what's going to separate you, and it's actually what we're called to be. We're called to be unique in our faith. We're called to follow God, and following God among the world sometimes isn't a normal thing. And so when we talk about this, again, this is why it's so dangerous to be indifferent in your faith and not pursuing a direction if you're just being stagnant, being lukewarm, exactly. Because you're actually doing more evil than you would think you are, right? You have the opportunity every day in your life to evangelize the world by what you do, by your actions, by your own thoughts. And again, it's something as small as doing the sign of the cross in public. People are like, oh my gosh, why is he doing that? That's weird. But what you don't realize is you're actually inserting that question of, okay, what is that? I want to know why he's doing it. And it's like, okay, I want to explore that. I want to understand that. And so in your own way, you're actually evangelizing. And so it's really, it's cool. And I love the way he words this, because when you do exit this phase of normality, enter this world of your faith, for us Catholicism, you begin to notice more of the flowers that are around you, more of the people that shine, because God is with them, and you can see God with them, and you're like, oh, there's a flower blossoming on this dirt road. But yeah, so that's my first thoughts with the whole thing.
Yeah, and I really do like, I really do like your take on it. I think adding a word that we're going to talk about a lot today is going to be conformity. Because I think a lot of what we're talking about is like, yeah, what we believe to be the norm. And what I'm pulling up over here is the world population clock, which is one of my favorite things ever. But current world population is 8.2 billion, in case anyone was wondering. And I would send a wager that over 50% of the world, and I would bet a healthy portion over of 50%, is in some way spiritual or religious, right? And I would wager in America over 75% of the people in America are in some way religious, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Islam, whether it's Judaism, whether it's some other spiritual form, right? Whether it's agnostic, whether, something like that. And I look at this, and I do always take this thing of like, some people get self-conscious when they're praying over their food or praying in public or something like that. Or even like, if like I'll be out and about with Caroline, and I like to do this. I think it's a really cool thing, and I don't do it enough, but like, we'll be on a hike or something. I'm like, Caroline, I would love to like just pray a glory be, because like we're out in nature. It's beautiful. I love my girlfriend, so she's right here, and this is just such a fantastic blessing. Like, let's pray a glory be for just how beautiful this creation is, how wonderful everything is, how wonderful God is. And, we tend to get self-conscious about that. And it's one of those things where if we just look at it statistically, right, like it's probably the normal to be a person who believes in prayer, to be a person who believes in God, be a person who believes in a higher being, right? And so I always think it's funny because when we talk about normalcy, it's actually really normal to have faith, really normal to love God, really normal to devote yourself to something that's not you. But we still get this self-conscious. We still get this, oh, this is kind of weird. This is against the norm, because there are so many people who are lukewarm, who are indifferent, who are just going through the motions. And so, pushing back against that would be my first thought on this, and pushing back against that conformity of the 50% who are lukewarm, who are indifferent, who are, just kind of going through the motions of the life, pushing back against the urge to conform, the urge to be ashamed, the urge to be self-centered, and instead go out and be unashamed and unabashed of your faith, of your love. The second thing I want to say is, when you get off that paved road, you talked about, like, Catholicism, especially nowadays, being a dirt road, and it honestly sometimes it's like an uphill road with 6 feet of mud or quicksand, and there's like poisonous snakes and poison ivy and all this stuff.
Sorry, it like just started absolutely pouring here. I apologize
Oh
for that. I am
no,
listening.
it did that all yesterday. But no,
Okay.
sometimes we're walking down this road and it's crazy. It's treacherous. It's treacherous is the word I would use. And yet, it's kind of like that Eminem song. I think it's Eminem at least. Um, the rose that grows out of the sidewalk. It's a Shel Silverstein poem, I want to say. Somebody fact check me on this. But you know, God sees this, and He sees this treacherous. He sees you walking through the desert. He sees you walking down this path that's covered in mud and dirt and snakes and thorns and trees and cliffs and all this stuff. And He says, you know what? There are some times in your life where you need a rose. Shout out to what we're going to talk about later. You need a rose. You need a little flower to keep you going. And I've always found that on my path, I've never been in a place so desperate, so desolate, where I've been like, man, I have no idea where God is in this occasion. And, call that a blessing. Maybe I've been blessed that I haven't found that place, but also call it perspective on, I've been in bad places, and yet, if you're looking for it, you will find a little shred of beauty, a little shred of God, a little shred of what He's put in your path to tell you this is not all it's about. It is not about the treacherous. It is not about how this road isn't paved and beautiful and gorgeous and there's not bridges over the rivers, but it's about the beauty that you're going to see. Because I always think about it as heaven's going to be like that scene in The Sound of Music. Bang. I'm reaffirming my, I have my Searchie around here somewhere. I won a movie, I won like the Cinephile Award. But heaven's going to be like that scene at the end of Sound of Music when they escape from Nazi Austria and they're like dancing over the Alps, right? That's going to be us when it's faithful, when we get away from all of this treachery, all this strife, all this pain, all this hurt, all this sorrow, and we're dancing in the flowers and on the hills and on the tops of mountains. And that's what is at the end of that path. It's not more mud and thorns and treacherous and danger and horrible muck. It's hills filled with flowers and fields filled with blossoms and bees and all these beautiful things. So that's kind of my second. That would be the second thing, is that there's always going to be those little tidbits. And I know I mean I don't know, but I'm sure you can talk to this too. There's always going to be those little tidbits that kind of say like, hey, you're on the right path. Kind of like a Hansel and Gretel. There we go, bang, another literary reference. Kind of like a Hansel and Gretel breadcrumb path that's leading you on your way, that tells you you're doing the right thing.
So my family has this tradition when we call these little things that are leading you on the path. We call them God winks. So like in your life,
God winks, like
God winks.
like the eye thing, like the wink, like
Yeah,
the
like
wink.
if God, it's God
Okay.
winking at us. Like it's God, like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, you're
Yeah.
doing the
Yeah.
right thing.
Yeah.
And so it'll just be little things like that come up in our life. An example of this is when we were moving into our, and this could be total coincidence, but I think it's quite crazy to be a total coincidence. But when we were building our house in Coleman, Alabama, when we moved from Birmingham, we were putting on the last stroke of paint, and this was the last thing we were doing to our house. It was the last stroke of paint, and a dove. I don't know. We're in the middle of nowhere, like the middle of the country, and a dove goes above our house and circles our house 3 times, which I get goosebumps to this day. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And then the dove flew away, never to be seen again. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Wow, that's
Lightning
nice.
is
I'm
insane. Yeah, that was
jealous.
good. Yeah. But so crazy little experience there. And so we call them God winks. So yeah, there will be God winks to guide you along in your path. Like don't worry. They may be hard to notice sometimes, but like God is always winking at you, and He's always giving you those little blessings. That's why like we talk about these little blessings in your life. It's good to acknowledge these little things that are going good in your life because God is winking at you in those things. I love that you're bringing up poetry. By the way,
And so I will say, are you going to read a poem real fast?
I was
Okay. Before that, I want to talk about God winks real fast. So,
okay.
I forget which priest story this is, but it's either one of Father David Michael Moses, who, if you don't know him, really cool guy to follow. But also, my claim to fame is that he spent his pastoral year at my parish. So I have altar served and been in contact with Father, like was at his parish for quite a while before he was a priest when he was a seminarian, or it was Father Richard McNeely, who's also a really cool guy. He is the I think he's about to exit as the vocations director for the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston, but he is a fantastic priest, really cool guy. But he talks about how when he was about to enter seminary, how he was like sending God kind of these tests and saying like, okay, if I meant to go to seminary, send me like a dove. Like, let me see a dove, you know? And for weeks and weeks, he went all this time and no doves. And he's like, okay, this is weird because usually I'd be seeing doves and stuff, right? And so finally this one day comes and he's like, God must be telling me not to go to the seminary, yada, yada, yada. And so he's at his church praying. And he's like, man, I'm just looking around in this church, and I look up and I realize that on the ceiling of my church is a giant stained glass window, and the only thing in the stained glass window is this huge dove. And so, I kind of like God winks because sometimes we're just too blind to see them. And that's why I talk about perspective of being like, we can be in this terrible area. We can be in this horrible place in our faith, and our heads down. We're not looking around. And really, I mean, if we take our heads up and look, God is always going to be there. He's always going to be there. He's always going to love us. He's always going to want us to return to Him. And He's going to give us these little signs that say, hey, I'm still here. I still love you. I still know you. I want you with me. And I always think of that story whenever I'm like, hey, God, and the old adage, like, no is still an answer. But whenever I'm like, hey, God, it'd be nice if I could get this. And I'm like, send me X as a sign. And I'm just like, I'm a dummy. Like, why am I even doing that?
This is you and me before every disc golf throw. We're like, okay, birdie,
dude,
God,
send me a hole in one.
birdie.
Send me a hole in one. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Shoot, your poem.
It was
I
actually
like
the
poetry
poem that you shouted out.
the-
I want to read it. It's called "Where the Sidewalk Ends." This is by Shel Silverstein.
Bang.
Legendary poet, by the way.
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
legend.
Absolutely.
But here's the poem, and I'm gonna if I'm gonna try to be a narrator for you guys here, so just appreciate my voice.
ASMR.
There is a place where the sidewalk ends, and before the street begins, and there the grass grows soft and white, and there the sun burns crimson bright, and there the moonbird rests from his flight, to cool in the peppermint wind. Let us leave this place where the smoke blows black and the dark street winds and bends. Past the pits where the asphalt flowers grow, we shall walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and watch where the chalk white arrows go to the place where the sidewalk ends. Yes, we'll walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and we'll go where the chalk white arrows go. For the children, they mark, and the children, they know the place where the sidewalk ends. And there you go. That's where the sidewalk ends. And it's so funny. I didn't even realize this. This is so Christian in so many ways. Being childlike, another thing that we continue to talk about. It's so important in your faith, and I've realized it's so much more going to Italy and being with a bunch of older people. And I'm telling you, when you are childlike at whatever age you are, somebody else can feel it. And I felt it in every single person I was on that trip with. It was 19 years old, and there were people in their 60s on that trip, and I still didn't feel young. I felt exactly like I belonged there with them. And so it shows, like, it really comes to show you, like, how your childlikeness can unite, like, everybody in your faith, right? Like, being Christ-like, being childlike, those are your mottos. That's your models. That's what you should follow. And in the end, that's what unites us and strengthens us as a faith. But yeah, thanks for the poetry shout there.
Well, and
Evan.
so, without further ado, I think since I kind of want to talk about this too, let's launch into our personal prayer practice. So, cue up the music.
There will be.
Make the music.
Real quick for you guys, Evan Aber beautifully designed these three. He didn't design, he designed our episode with our practical prayer practice and our quote. And so I think the more and more that we talk about it, the more and more I realize how genius this is. So thank you for this.
I like this. I'm very...
Yeah. It goes along very well. Okay, do you want the shorter one or the longer one? And then I'll do the shorter one. Okay, here you go.
Personal prayer practice. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
I'm getting better at this. So our personal prayer practice for this week, as the ASMR hurricane continues in Cole's room. I'm worried about your power going out. Our personal prayer practice for the week is smelling the roses, taking it in, and giving thanks. And the reason I kind of wanted to talk about this is I love in that poem how it talks about walking with a walk that is measured and slow. Because, you don't realize it, but if you walk fast, well, I guess maybe you do realize it, but if you walk fast, your eyes have to be down on the path. Because you're walking fast, you're liable to trip over something. But, you're walking slow, you're wandering. Some may call it a saunter or a meander is what I prefer. You don't have to be focused on the road. You can be looking at the trees and looking at the birds and looking at the wildlife, right? And so I like that it talks about walking with a walk that is measured and slow. Deliberate is a word I would use. But one that is intentionally about everything else and not intentionally about the walk. And so smelling the roses, picking your head up, looking for those little tidbits. And then when you see those things, when you're given those little gifts, when you see that beauty, when you see that art, when you see, those people that you recognize Christ in, giving thanks and saying, God, thank you for this little tidbit that you've given me. Thank you for this little tidbit that I can see that rises my faith, that lights a fire in me. Thank you for this creation. And so the PPP, smelling the roses, giving thanks for those same roses. Cole, what do you make of this?
I'm so excited you did this.
I know. I'm telling you, this is like a bang, bang, bang. This Mike Breen ought to hire me. He would say bang a lot.
Yeah, he would. He would. Really quickly, we are going. The word I want to bring up is it's a German word. It's called Sehnsucht, and I might say it wrong, but it's Sehnsucht. And I learned about this all week, and this word will come back. Like it's going to come back in another episode when we talk about the three transcendentals later on. But this, I love that you're doing this. Okay, the Sehnsucht, and I'm going to define Sehnsucht real quick. It's not long, but it's a longing, a desire, a yearning, or a craving, and it's something that I think we should practice more often. I'm going to show you guys a picture real quick if I can get it pulled up. Please be the right picture.
Yearning.
Please be the right picture.
Caroline and I often talk about bring back yearning.
Yes. And right here, look at this. Okay. Oh, thank you, Bill Donahue, Theology of the Body Institute. You are so awesome, and I totally get what you're talking about. But yearning, okay, it's this ability to be absolutely and utterly enthralled and lost in something. And it's what we're called to do with our faith. Jesus gave us something to be enthralled over. He gave us his world, and he gave us beauty in this world. And so I love that you're talking about stopping by, smelling the roses, right? Like stopping, like this kid is looking at a pond, just holding his hands over the reflection in the water, watching the puddles move. Like there is so much beauty in the little things, and the beauty actually never ends. You can get as close as you want to an object and realize the structure is still so intricately designed to perfection. So Sehnsucht, longing, yearning, I encourage you all, including myself, when you're out and about, practice yearning, practice wonder, especially wonder. The way of wonder is what they call it. I have a very bad habit while I'm on campus of putting in my headphones and only listening to music all the time. Sometimes I just need to I did this a couple times last year, but I'd take my headphones out, and I totally probably look like a hippie doing this, but I took my headphones out and I was walking across campus and I see this bush, and I go up to this bush and I'm just holding a leaf in my hand and I'm sitting there staring at it while everybody's passing me, and I'm like, golly, they probably think I'm weird, but it goes back to normality. Don't be normal. Practice wonder in a world full of stagnant, like people who are constantly looking down. Look up, look left, look right, look at what's around you, and allow yourself to be consumed. Be consumed. Because these emotions and this wonder, that should stab you. That should give you a feeling in your gut that should be tearing you apart. It should be like, oh, I want this beauty. Because that longing for that beauty that's given to us in the world, which you don't realize is actually just a longing for God. It's a longing for God, and it's his gift to us is this ability to understand and feel that longing through the world. So.
Yeah, and I can say from my year of catching bugs, I understand the getting looked at very oddly when I stop on, a sidewalk or when I stop in the quad and I'm like, prodding a bug across the concrete with my finger, like, what are you? But the second thing I would say is and this kind of builds off your Sehnsucht or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm no German. But kind of following that yearning then, right? Like we talk about the transcendentals, the good, the true, and the beautiful. We talk about like those things in our life where those are what's driving us towards those things that we want that we want to achieve. And so like, for example, I always do this with nature, right? Like you see something beautiful, or like I'll see an Instagram reel and it's like, oh, this beautiful place and yada yada. And I'm like, man, that's really pretty. And I can also get out into nature and go do that. So, like, follow that yearning. Like, you're yearning for nature. Get out into nature. You're yearning for whatever. Go find it. And, of course, go find it spiritually. Go find it faithfully. Go find it, I don't have to add ethically or morally, but, like, go find it in a way that's ordained by the faith, right? I'm not saying, oh, I desire love. I long for love. I yearn for love. Let me go, have a frivolous relationship. But go out and find those things. Like God has given us these things that we yearn for, that we long for, that we love because of the goodness of them. You rarely yearn for a bad thing. You may fearfully want a bad thing, but rarely I'm like, oh yes, I yearn. I have that feeling of beautiful desire for this thing that is inherently bad for me. I've never felt that way about anything that's bad for me. So yeah, I 100% agree with you. Yearn, long for those things. And at perfect time, perfect time. It's about that time. It's about that time to introduce our shepherd of the week, because we can talk a long time about yearning and longing for something for a really long time. So, Cole, start the introduction. Take us away.
Here we go. How am I going to do this? Okay. The shepherd of the week. Anyways,
No, I really love the beatbox.
I miss Rosario.
We
Anyways,
just need to audio clip
yeah,
on the
it
soundboard.
needs to be a clip. We need the
Next
the
episode.
audio clip of that and the heresy check, and then we were so sad. And then I'm gonna let you intro this really quickly. I'm just gonna say. Well, no, you don't have to do it quickly. I was just gonna say. I was gonna say something really quickly. Science is a beautiful word, and I do think that it's going to come back up. And so, if you're interested in it, just wait, because I do believe we'll talk about it again. So, thank you. But Evan, take off.
So, our shepherd of the week, someone who really longed to find Christ in her life, someone who really longed for a meaning in her life. Saint Therese of Lisieux, Therese of the Little Flower, Therese of the Little Way, or the Little Flower of Jesus. And if you haven't figured it out by now, our theme for this week is kind of flowery, if you will. But I think, when we talk about someone who yearned and who went out and got it, there's no better example than Therese of Lisieux, who literally went to Italy, went to Rome when they told her that she was too young to enter the convent, went to Rome and met the Pope and was like, hey, I need a letter because they won't let me into the convent because I'm too young. And so she was like, I'm going to go to the Pope. I'm going to get a letter. I'm going to say, hey, tell my bishop to let me into the convent because I ought to be in the convent. But what Therese of Lisieux is so famous for, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with this, is her little way of loving Christ. And it just simply, the tiny things. Talks about how Therese was young. She was sickly. She suffered from tuberculosis. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so she couldn't do these huge acts. And even as an individual, we can't do these huge acts that change the world oftentimes. And so she sought to find holiness in the tiny things in her life. Do the tiny things with great love. Whether that was gardening at the convent, which I think was one of her great passions, if I'm not mistaken, or whether it was, sharing with the poor, loving her sisters, loving others, but doing those tiny little actions with great love every day and using those actions to grow in holiness and to grow the people around her in holiness.
Yeah, and to say more on this, it's really cool to be a part of something that uses the little way as like their model. For example, the three of us, me, Evan, Nazario, proper grammar, Nazario, Evan, and I, are part of Focus's version of the little way. And how does that work for us? We go through this process called discipleship. And what's really cool about this is our discipler, Evan Abear, who we decided to include on our podcast, is practicing his little way through us and then encouraging us to practice our little way through our disciples. And then we're encouraging our disciples to practice the little way through their disciples as things go forward. And it's this never-ending process. And what's cool about this is it actually ends up working a lot better than this huge evangelization, because in the end you're going to reach a lot more people than you think, because it's like it's just this, like, these numbers just drastically will increase. You'll have one guy who talks to two guys, who then those two guys talk to two more, so then it goes to 8 people, and then it's this huge jump, and before you know it you're at 1,000 people. And so the little way can be extremely important, or it could be something as simple as like somebody drops a coin on the floor and you're like, oh, here, let me pick that up for you. Like, you would be shocked how little you actually have to do to make somebody's day. And so it's something that I've tried to adopt a little more. And I remember Nazario and I don't know if you were even on the podcast at this point, but we had talked something very similar about this, and it was like a challenge. It was actually our practical prayer practice of the week, I think, back then. And it was our challenge is when you see something about somebody that you can compliment. I think this is different with guys than it is with girls, because I think as dudes, I think you need to tell more dudes more compliments. So if you see something about like your bud, your friend, and you're like, dude, like I'm like that's really cool. Go up and tell him. Like tell the guy. Like you don't understand how little effort you actually have to do it. And I'd say it's harder for guys to compliment girls like in a friendly manner. But if you're really close with friends with a girl and you're cool with that, go for it. But girls, like compliment your girlfriends. Guys, compliment your guy friends. Like that's how it should be. And so if you see something in another person that you really think you could just give them that little way that could change their day, I promise you would be in shock of how little you actually have to do. Like there's not that much that you need to do just to change somebody's day. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we talk so much about like, I think we have these existential crises about like, we see the world and we see the craziness of it and we see the badness of it. And we're like, how on earth can we change this? And really, it's just about changing what's in front of us, what's around us, because we can't affect the whole world, or at least we can't affect the whole world right now. You have to start tiny. You have to start with what's in front of you, and who's around you. And so, yeah, doing those little things is really where it all begins, where it all starts, where the path lies. So yeah, great saint. A lot of devotions to her, a lot of love to Saint Therese of Lisieux, and a lot of prayers are offered to her each year, especially for suffering. She was a great suffering saint. Just for chronic illness and for disease and whatnot. But a wonderful saint to have a devotion to, a wonderful saint to have your life modeled towards, Saint Therese of Lisieux. But going back to kind of the original quote as we wrap up here, final thoughts again by Vincent Van Gogh. Normality is a paved road. It is comfortable to walk, but no flowers grow on it. Final thoughts to you, Cole.
Comfortability doesn't always mean you're doing the right thing. I think that's my first warning. Don't get lost in the comfortable because it's easy. If our faith was easy, everybody would be united with God in heaven, and God wants that of all of us. But it's not easy because we have a gift given to us of free will, and so we have that decision. And so we need to be aware that comfortability is actually it's harming us more than it's helping us. Something that I think Screwtape says to his nephew is that how do I word this correctly? Okay, that just like this just comfortability in your faith is far worse for you than having no religion at all. Let that sink in. Comfortability
I think
in your
something
faith.
like complacency is a far better poison than like hedonism or something like that.
Yeah. So
it's
it really shows like don't be complacent in your faith because you're really not practicing your faith at all. You're harming yourself more than you're helping yourself. So there you go. Yeah, final warning.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about my last thoughts, when we talk about the little things, when we talk about the little way, we don't appreciate how much our life is watched by others, and not to start an anxious circle for any of our audience members, but just people realize little things. People realize that sign of the cross, like you were talking about before. People realize those little prayers. And so, if we're being complacent, then we're setting an example for others. We're setting an example to others that, my faith is not a big thing in my life. And that's not the image we want to set. That's not the path we want to take. And so that complacency breeds complacency in others. It reaffirms it in ourselves, and it just it becomes a dangerous poison. So don't be comfortable. I think we can harp on this a lot. I think we have harped on it a lot, but don't be comfortable. Don't be, strive to walk that path that may be a little more treacherous, and look out for those look out for the tiny flowers that tell us that you're on the right path, that you are really going the right way, that you're following God's will, and that He's always there for you and He always loves you.
Yep. Alrighty. So real quick before we close, our plugs, as we need to do a better job of, is we're gonna plug first our t-shirts. They are relatively cheap compared to other t-shirts you will see online. Are you rocking it? I can't even tell, dude. You're rocking our shirt. I'm rocking it.
No,
I'm not. I'm not.
This is a shirt.
Oh, it looked like it. That's a fire shirt too.
This is a fire shirt. Actually, I was wearing this shirt in the Boston airport as I was going.
Were you
through,
really? That's sick.
As I was going through TSA, and you have to I was wearing a backpack, so I took off my backpack, and the guy behind me was like, because it's.
Yeah, that's a fire shirt.
It's the heart one, but he was like, "Man, I love that shirt. You have to show that to my wife," and she was in front of me, and he was like, whatever her name was, I think it wasn't Ethel, but I'm gonna say Ethel. He was like, "Man, you need to see his shirt," and I turned around and showed her, and she was like, he's all been into this heart stuff because he had a big heart attack, and whatever, it's given him a new lease on life. And I was like, man, it really is the little things. Like, that's such a cool glory story that you can hear about. But anyway, shirts.
So that's a really cool story actually to have on top of that. Yeah. It shows you the power of there's so much beauty in just art. Anyways, but shirts, $18. We got tons of different colors. Evan has the brown one, Savannah Brown, right?
Savannah Brown, yeah.
And I've got the white one. Nazario has not ordered his. We will get him to order his at some point.
I'm just going to order one to his house. What's his address?
Maybe that's what we do. Just gift it to him and tell him to Venmo us back. We have bracelets. If you want a bracelet, just text us or DM us. We'll give it to you for free. We just give those out. We got so many still left, and I feel like I've given out hundreds. I don't know. Maybe Jesus is performing miracles and our bracelets keep multiplying, and I just have no idea, because I swear I keep pulling out of the bag, and there's more every time I pull out of the bag. So bracelets, pretty soon we'll be doing a giveaway, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Other than that, like, subscribe, comment, follow us on any platform you got. We love comments. I, again, want to just keep stressing that. Comment. Like, I love responding to them. We love referencing them in our podcast. If you have a question and you're like, or even give us a quote. Like, if you want to inspire an episode, go for it. Inspire an episode. Give us a quote. We love to talk about quotes. And you guys can be our Godwinks for the week. So,
and we'll give you a shout out. And the other thing I was going to say, I passed this by Nazario the other day, but I think, the first month we're back at school, the first month we're back together, we should do another mailbag, because that was really
that was a fun episode.
It was very fun to shoot, but also, we need to collect questions and things like that, as soon as we can, so we can get a good wealth, because that was really... for us, I mean, I know, hopefully these episodes are fun for you to watch, and they're entertaining, and you also learn something. But there are certain episodes that I, film, and I'm like, man, that was fun to film. And the mailbag episodes were truly fun to film. So
I think what we like so much about those is it really challenges us, and it's like, okay, we get to be vulnerable here, and we get to just talk about, we love being receptive to you guys. It's like our favorite thing. And now that we have, shout out a couple listeners in Italy and a couple other countries that they're listening. So we are now international.
International.
Just cool. If you have any questions that you want us to store for a mailbag episode, feel free to reach out to us with those as well. Evan, would you like to close us off, since this was your beautifully designed episode?
Yeah, so go connect with us on our socials. Go get with us and comment and reach out and just, do the little stuff. But episode number 56, thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Lost Sheep Podcast. Have a great week, and God bless.
Ciao.